Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Zoo Cruise My Story podcast. My name is Sarah, and I'm an alcoholic. Please be sure to subscribe, like, share, and comment on our videos so that YouTube will send them out to alcoholics looking for recovery. Today we have Bruce S. sharing their story and experience, strength, and hope with us. They're going to tell us what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. Please keep in mind that this will be going on an Alcoholics Anonymous website. So without further ado, I give you Bruce S., who has 51 years of sobriety. So come on in, Bruce. The floor is yours.
Okay, I was born on December 11th, 1942, to an Army Air Force sergeant and a housewife in Alhambra, California. I my mother told me she went into labor when she heard on the radio that Guadalcanal had been secured by the Marines. 24 hours later, I was forced out of my comfortable, but I don't remember what was going on in there. Anyway, I got born to these people and I got brought home. My grandparents were homesteaders, which means I think that they didn't actually buy the property that they raised my mother on, but they homesteaded it. And the war ended when I was, what, 2 years old? Anyway, that's what I was told. I don't remember being born. I do remember some years later, well, they showed up with my sister, who I didn't ask for, I didn't approve of, and according to what I was told, I didn't speak for 3 days because I didn't appreciate another baby being in the house. I still don't appreciate my sister, who's a 13 months young, my junior. All of that had nothing to do with anything important. So I remember my parents either went through a divorce or he was a casualty. Although I don't remember anything about that era. Later on, I'm my mother got remarried. That's how I went from Hunt to Saul on adoption. They didn't ask my permission, so I didn't give it. Anyway, that went on for some years. I had this adopted father, and then they divorced. My mother was a pain, Payne, but she lived up to it. Pain. Anyway, they divorced, and I'm in high school, and she meets Charles Emery Washburn, who becomes my stepfather with three stepbrothers. And I was old enough to say no because Washburn is 8 letters. Saul is 4. I like simplicity. 4 letters was better. So I've still got the 4 letters. They got divorced. They got remarried. So I'm a product of several divorces. And then I discovered wine. The local liquor store would sell me wine. I would drink in my room. Then one day, Charlie caught me drinking in my room. And I got my only lecture, parental lecture on drinking. I will quote him. If you're going to drink, you're going to do it in front of me. That was my entire lecture. The next thing I know, he's taking me to the Moose Lodge where we drink together. For some reason later on, he just said I had enough and put it down. I didn't do that. So at any rate, Saul had taken us out to movie sets. So I got the entire illusion busted. One day, we're out at Corriganville, and Gene Autry is having a fist fight with a stuntman named Lane Bradford, who was also a B-movie villain. And at the end of the fight, Bradford gets up. When I saw the episode on TV, he didn't get up. That's when I knew the whole damn thing was fake. But I grew up with it anyway, so there was lots of activity on movie sets, watching various people do things, and that helped me later on. None of this stopped my wine drinking, and Washburn was an engineer, which I discovered was probably more corrupt than the movie industry, at least ego-wise. So my parents eventually passed away. I got married after I got to work. I got hired out of a writer's workshop. I was the only student in the writer's workshop who could do a first draft on a script out of 100 people, which has nothing whatever to do with my drinking. Although I was demonstrating alcoholic behavior with that, I didn't know it. So I get married. I have a stepdaughter. We have 2 children. All 3 are grandparents now. Well, the son isn't yet, but his daughter's working on it. So I'm drinking and I'm getting out of control, and my alcoholic behavior is getting really bad. After 3.5 years, she had the good sense to throw me out. I didn't agree with that at the time, but it was better than going to jail. So I go on a drinking binge, and I moved from Alhambra to Pasadena, where there's an actual Skid Row. And my employer, well, he's not really an employer, he's an associate. Hollywood, the TV industry works differently. than normal businesses. So I was told not to come to the office and not to go into the bar. And I spent 10 months on Pasadena Skid Row. And my behavior pattern was extremely alcoholic. And after 10 months, an unusual thing happened. Another drunk shared a bottle with me. They don't share anything with anybody. It's a lifestyle, and I didn't like it. So he invites me to go to an AA meeting. I have no knowledge of AA at all. So we walk over out of Skid Row, past the courthouse to the small building that's 202 North Euclid. I remember that on the door. I see his hand moving around my side, opening the door. I feel his hand on the other hand on my back, and I became the only newcomer I've ever heard of who got shoved into AA. So there I am in this smoke-filled room, cigarette smoke everywhere, people talking about God and fucking language, and drunks sleeping on the couches and the benches, snoring going on, and talking about God. I turn around and he's in the way. I can't get out. So I sit down and I have been thrown out of so many places at the age of 32 that I was quite surprised when no one asked me to leave. There were other people in the room who were intoxicated like I was. So some guy asked me, "Are you sober?" And I said, "No." Everybody else that was drunk said 2 weeks. So I was asked to come back sober the next day. The guy who got me there disappears. I decide I'm going to go to a meeting. I'm not really sure that one day is sober. I walk in, they don't ask me to leave. Instead, they sit me down and I get a cup of coffee and a donut. They insisted that newcomers eat sugar because they had to replace the wine. After all, alcohol is distilled fruit and it's sugar. It turns into sugar. So I make it through a meeting and I come back the next day and I'm still quite homeless and I'm at Skid Row. The next thing I know, people are inviting me to go to their homes to spend the night. That's what they did with newcomers in 1975. They invited you to spend the night, no more than one night. So I got to spend the night in several homes and got to know a few people. And I met my Dr. Bob, as I call him, a little Italian guy with a couple of years sobriety with a family. You know, he had married an alcoholic and she already had two boys. So my Dr. Bob and I got along for the first 30 days. We actually lasted the first 10 years of my sobriety as buddies. So at 30 days, now the group asks you to raise your hand if you don't have 30 days. And there wasn't a whole lot of us that were new. The relapse rate was out of hand. Oh, it was awful. And the number of people who would get drunk and go to detox and not make it back was pretty high. The death rate was there. So at 30 days, this guy walks up to me and says, "I'm your sponsor." He was dying from cirrhosis of the liver at 5 years sober. He needed a sick newcomer to listen to and work with. So I became his sick newcomer. And I'm telling you that cirrhosis of the liver is a bad way to go. It's slow, it's deadly, it's painful, it's horrible. And I had seen quite a bit of it in the first 5 years. Anyway, Charlie died. He had a nice funeral in his home. And so at 3 months sobriety, I've done my steps a little bit through. Well, he asked me to do 4 and 5, and then he helped me through the next few steps. So I had to go find a new sponsor. I got one. I worked with him for a while. He moved away. I still resented that. I got another sponsor. He lasted for a few months. He got into trouble when he took his girlfriend's daughter to a movie, and the girlfriend didn't like that. So rather than face a court situation, he moved away. So there I am. I find I get approached by a woman who invites me to her home. I had no knowledge at that moment of 13, but I can say it didn't hurt a bit. It lasted for a little while, and then, as in most early situations where alcoholic women make use of newcomer men for a while, and some of the guys do it too. But the 13th step was quite rapid. I mean, it was just known and done, and sex was a big part of newcomership. So I did learn, I heard that nonsense about don't get emotionally involved in the first year, which, as far as I'm concerned, is my initials are BS, and it works that way. All that does is cause human anger, and that anger can turn into a relapse. So anybody who stays out of sex in the first year, when they're young enough to produce children, it should get involved in raising children, having sex. So I get to the first year without a problem with relapse. Two of us made it that year. The other one came in September, and she just turned 80. I'm 83, so we're both 80, we're both 51 years now. She just turned 51 a couple months ago. I never did like her, but that's beside the point. You can't like everybody you meet. Some people I liked, and then, well, earlier on, this is where my problem goes with speaking longer term, because I bounce around the time situation. At about 6 months, I meet a guy who walks into the meeting with, he's got one arm, and I recognized him. I went to college with his son. We were both in writer school. Tommy Jr. didn't make it into the industry. I did. So I get to move to into his home. So I reacquainted with my friend Junior. This sponsor lasts me for 10 years. I was like another son. He already had three sons, all normies. So I guess he needed an alcoholic son. So anyway, I think he had 15 years when I met him. And he gets me into all kinds of educational stuff. And for some reason, I didn't relapse. I made it to the first year without a relapse, which is highly unusual. And I that about that time, my employer puts me to work writing skits for a dumb TV show that was actually airing on Saturday nights. So I end up going into Hollywood, which is like 20 miles away. And we're working in a studio on Vine Street. And I got to meet my fellow TV writers. Not that it matters, but movie writers and TV writers in the industry do not get along. We did not get along because every writer thinks that their idea should not is the greatest idea in history, worth $1 million, and we never make that much money. But what the heck? Anyway, I ended up moving in with one of my co-writers in downtown Hollywood, and I'm still working on those steps, trying to figure out what I'm doing. Didn't have a lot of trouble with God, but having been raised in a Christian family, I had already fired that situation, and a new movie opened. This is one of my favorite events. Oh God opened at the Chinese Theater. I was now used to going to the Chinese Theater on the first day of a movie and watching in the theater. It, George Burns was in the film, and I had grown up with him on TV, the George and Gracie show. He was one of those great comedians, and none of my comedians growing up cussed at all. Now they can't stop cussing. At any rate, I'm halfway through the movie, and I like the dialogue that George has to say, and he admits making a mistake about something or other. And I thought, God made a mistake. And I realized I'm watching a movie about my higher power. So, as far as I'm concerned, the character George Burns played in that movie has been my higher power even up to this moment. God can make mistakes, and he's made some lulus as far as I'm concerned. At any rate, I get finished with that, and I get to work with. I got changed to another show, and I get to work with Aldo Ray, who is a practicing alcoholic, and I get to drive him to the show to perform, and eventually he shows up completely drunk at a taping, and I'm told not to bring him back because they don't want him in the show anymore. The show's over, and I get to meet a stuntman at that point who was doing a stunt workshop, and I'm still sober. And I meet the guy who's the head of the union, the Artists and Technicians Union, which handled lower budget movies, and I was a low budget writer. So I grabbed a chance to work on screenplays instead of the dumb show I'm doing. And I get to work, I become the vice president of the union because along the way I get ordained. My sponsor decides that since I'm a religious person, which I was at that time, I should get ordained by this church that they have, and so the union puts me to work as a vice president because I can sign papers. He discovers I have a legal signature for a nonprofit, and which churches are, and I go to work there for a long time as a technical person on the situation. One day, he gets killed in a car accident, and I'm no longer vice president of the union. All of a sudden, the guy from the government shows up, who's a good friend, basically, and he hands me the paperwork for the union and a church, which my former employer, Leighton Pryor, had. And as far as I know, all that paperwork is still in the box in the garage. I haven't gone in there in 20 years to look for it. So I get to meet the stunt coordinator for the workshop union, and he hires me because I have a camera and I can videotape things by then. So I'm working with the stunt guys for the next 10 months, working on a screenplay for stunts. And that was one of my great highlights of my life. I thought I had made it as a writer and video guy. The camera, after 10 months, a camera gets stolen, and I can't afford another one at that point. So I'm dismissed. And I take home all this videotape I had done, and I turned it into three documentaries, which are on my website. And I finally finished the dumb script. And by that time, I'm like 10 years sober, and I'm living with an sober alcoholic woman. And we were, as they say it, the phrase they used in AA was shacked up. We shacked up for 4 years. And I'm working on the stunt guys and everything else. And we finally break up. So I figured I made it 4 years with her. And, and my wife divorced me. And I decided to move in with my mother back in Alhambra with my son, who's now moved in with me. My daughter didn't. I think she's an alcoholic, and alcoholic parent and child do not get along well. And I can't carry the message anyway. We cannot carry the message to our own children. And I learned that the hard way watching others in the group I was a member of. So we get through all that, and I did learn one important thing as I lived with my mother for a while. People started asking me to sponsor them. The first guy that I sponsored has now got 39 years, and I don't understand how he stayed sober. The second guy I sponsored died in sobriety, and I don't know how he stayed sober either. So I end up sponsoring a bunch of people and starting to click in the group I've been a member of since the first day of sobriety. And oh, I was going to mention this came later as I listened to their fourth steps and their fifth steps. Every fifth step I heard, the resentment list started with mother. One guy who I sponsored listed his father as the head resentment. It was never anything but the parents. Then other people got listed, like ex-wives and stuff like that. And anyway, I finally, my son says we gotta leave grandma behind, and I became a apartment building manager due to a 12-step call I made. I also became a process server due to a 12-step call I made. I'm sponsoring people that I'm working for. Uh, Along the way, this blue-eyed blonde walks in to the meetings. I invite her, and I think she can hear me from here. I walk, I invite her to go to our Sunday uh, barbecues, which our clique is working on. We have the girl I got sober with, Kathleen, is sponsoring the women. I'm sponsoring the guys, and we're videotaping the Sunday events. Uh, I think we lost one due to AIDS. AIDS is another bad way to go. But basically, we had some sort of working situation where people would get together on Sundays, watch a dumb movie, eat lunch, and nap on the floor. I decided to call it the Mild Bunch after the Wild Bunch, which was the first movie we watched. So the Mild Bunch goes on, and I invite this blue-eyed blonde to attend our luncheon. I have to be careful what I'm saying now because she's hearing me, and I don't want to get into her inventory. So we get together, and we decide to get married. And I move in with her, and my son follows almost immediately. So at 15, she becomes a stepmom. Guess what? 38 years later, we're happily married. So any idea that marrying into the program, a fellow alcoholic is not a good idea is nonsense. I just remembered as I watched people in the first 10 years, I learned a few things about people getting together in the marriage and matrimony in the program. You do not work their program. So I set down the rules as we're driving home from a meeting in the San Fernando Valley. And she hears me. She has like somewhere between 60 and 90 days. You work your program, I work my program. We do not connect on that front, and you get your own sponsor. 38 years later, we're holding to that. And she's sponsoring a bunch of women. But that's as much as I dare go into with what she's doing. I'm still told I'm sponsoring a couple people who have been sponsoring for years, and I really don't sponsor them anymore. They're just friends, and occasionally they call me up. One of them was 20 years old when he got sober, and he just hit, well, he's 50 now. So I guess he's called me his sponsor for 30 years. At any rate, he is a technical expert on computers. And I sponsored two of these guys who are technical experts on computers. So we're all doing well and everybody's staying sober. And the highlight of my sobriety comes up now. I get called into the boardroom at the Alano Club, and the board asked me to do something which has not been done very often in AA, and I'm not sure it was ever done before this happened. Since I come from a theatrical background, they asked me to do a play. Have you got any materials that concern AA recovery? And I said, yeah, I have one started. And fortunately, one of the guys I sponsored, who was also an attorney, said, I'll co-write it with you. And we had a good time writing the play. Then came the rehearsals. The idea was to get people active in the Alano Club membership. And one of the guys I'm sponsoring builds a stage. We have to get a camera for this, so I recorded all of the rehearsals. And occasionally, the group would do fundraisers as talent shows. Well, once when I was working for the stunt guys, I decided to take the camera to the meeting. You can't take a camera inside an active meeting, period. But you can turn the camera loose on people in the parking lot or between meetings. And I made a wonderful discovery that day. Half of the members who were hanging out that day, it was a Saturday, and they did question and answer on Saturdays. And half of the group that was there ducked out of sight. And that's still the case. Half of our members will not be photographed for reasons I don't know. The other half will turn around to the camera and turn him on you. I mean, they're doing crazy things. And that's what happened. And I still have all the video. So I recorded all of the shows, and we did some wacky things. Like one girl did "My Boots Are Made for Walking," and I recorded that. Another guy did the 13th Step Blues, which he wrote. That's recorded. And then a bunch of them, a bar had a bar donated benches to us, and a bunch of our members had to get the benches upstairs in the meeting room. I recorded all that. And then we had to move to another building, so I recorded them moving the uh, pool tables. My son was in that shot. Anyway, all of this stuff happened, and I still have all that video. So anyway, we finished doing the stage play, and we decided to turn it into a movie called The Half Measures Room, which I have, and I offered to let this new group, this group actually watch it on they have some kind of a Saturday viewing of movies, and we had to bring in some ringers for this one because you can't make a movie in AA with just alcoholics. It won't work. We're too unstable. One of the early things I learned was you know an alcoholic's coming when you see them coming through the door. And that still holds. You can't count on an alcoholic to show up, including the guy in the mirror. So we had a bunch of people come in who were stage people and movie people, and we were able to work for 2.5 months at the request of the board. In between meetings, we actually shot Half Measures Room in the meeting room and the coffee room. And, oh, it was fun. Everybody was turning ham, and me and my co-writer were having a ball writing three well three chapters or plays of it, and we did the last section of it was we decided to do a cappella about one of the favorite words in AA. It starts with F. So we wrote a skit that what are we actually telling each other? Because we knew what the word meant for unlawful carnal knowledge. So we did that, and everybody was enjoying doing that one. And so all of that is recorded, and then we finished it, and I didn't know if we could edit it or not. Video editing hadn't come into our level quite yet, but it did later. So now I have a 3-hour movie about a bunch of nuts talking things up in a coffee room. And the cast had a good time with that one. So later on, I'm at home, and we decided to, one of the guys decided to produce another movie. and he was one of my technical experts. So we did a script called the Eskimo and the Rhinoceros, which we did in my home, and it's 12-step call. The actors came together, we had the script, we did the movie at my home, and I had the Lion Man because the movie needed a good ending. You don't put in a bad ending on a serious drama with alcohol recovery. So at the end, I put in the guy decides to get sober and go to a meeting. It was a successful 12-step call. That's rare, very rare. In fact, basically, AA wants two people to show up for a 12-step call in a private home. And there was a tragedy that happened in Glendale, California. The two guys from the Windsor group went into this house, and one of them got shot by a drunk, and he was killed. Then we get word from AA in New York that we don't pick people up to take them to meetings. Because if you have an accident, and this happened several times, they'll sue AA. They don't sue the other driver. They sue us. And so we're no longer allowed to pick people up for a meeting, but we can drive them home. And so I did that many times. One time I got stopped by a cop, and he thought I was drunk because I was weaving a bit while we were having this conversation with a newcomer who didn't make it. Most of them don't. And I said, we just came from an AA meeting. And he said, well, go on your way then. Yeah, the cops are very willing to work with us, which takes me back to another something my sponsor did. I uh, I had to throw in something I did in the first 5 years of sobriety. That's when everybody should be doing meeting leading and stuff, and step work and expecting newcomers to stay sober when they don't. And I decided that since my wife divorced me, and she just passed away last year, and I thought it was a good idea she divorced me because I was a terrible drunk. And I decided I've got to get along with women. So I'm living in my sponsor's home, and I start going to a thing called We Care, which is for widowed and divorced people. Since I'm divorced, I can go. I go through 4 years of short relationships and things like that, and a lot of listening. And I finally get to where I can actually get along with a female for a period of time without acting like a complete ass and like I'm the male and I'm in charge. Nonsense. One thing I did learn in that group was that men do not make the choice. Any idea that we pick our wives is purely nonsense. Women make the sexual choice in every species on this planet. We're no exception. So I'm glad my wife chose me. So anyway, we were doing this We Care thing, and I learned how to function a little bit around women, and that includes women in AA, which there was a situation with sex that happened uh, that was quite amazing to me. OA was the first time I ever heard anyone break a tradition. Wasn't a narcotic, people. It was an OA. And she identifies OA, and she starts talking about food. And all the bleeding hearts in the meeting want to help her, so they listen to her. Our queen bee, every successful Alano club has a queen bee. She walks into the meeting. She stops it cold. What the F is going on in here? The next thing you know, we're having a 6-month battle over whether you can identify something more than alcohol in an AA meeting. You can't. But then Central Office made the dumbest move I've ever heard them make. They decided that you can identify anything you want in an AA meeting, provided you talk about alcohol. So people would start coming in and identifying all kinds of crap. And the OAs come in, and they made an amazing discovery. OA was an overwhelming number of females who were losing weight. AA up to that point was an amazing number of males trying to get sober. But half of them have Al-Anon wives, the other half don't. So the OAs start coming to an AA meeting, and they make this amazing discovery. There's men in AA. Wow. And they're lonely, and they're horny, and they want a wife and or a girlfriend or whatever. The situation turns into almost a dating service. For the first year of this situation going on, there are 19 pregnancies. There's 19 babies born to these people, and they stay married for the most part. So that's women became a really functioning part of the group. When all of a sudden you had an equal number of men and women in a meeting, and we decided at one point to start a new meeting since our group did not have one. So we get together, a bunch of us guys, and we decided what's the best way to start a meeting that we can attract members. So we decide, let's get the sexiest woman in the group to do it. She will attract the men, and they will show up for the meeting. She did. She gets married to one of them. She's now a grandmother. Yeah. And my wife is a close friend of hers, even though the woman still lives in Southern California. So we had all these friends that got married, and AA functions very well. And then my wife decides to retire. And I get taught, my daughter-in-law and her talk us into moving out of Southern California, where I've been for 29 years. we end up, we decide to move to Flagstaff, Arizona after a couple trips. And we got to meet a whole new batch of people. I run in, I decide on Flagstaff because there's a meeting in Flagstaff in an old building that reminds me of a group I got sober in. After a year, they're finished and they move out. And all the people moved to someplace else, and that group was finished. And they moved into a church, which they've been in for 20 years. I don't like the move. I'm not sure I like the people who came in after that, but we functioned in that group for a while, less successfully than the 202 zoo that I got sober in and stayed in. So I have sponsored a couple people, and one of the people I sponsored came in like I did. She was drunk. She now claims to have 18 years, which is okay with me. Basically, I would sponsor people until they got to the fifth step and then let them go. That's how I did it. And I sponsored a total of 19, I think. I don't, and then all of a sudden, I don't know how I'm going to say this because it's an outside issue, but the goddamn government closes down with that sick crap from uh, China. All of a sudden, there's no meetings. Nobody can go to meetings. I'm wondering, how can this be worked on? So after a while, they all reopened the meeting room in uh, Flagstaff, and they started attending again. A new crew were in there, a couple people from the old crew, but a new crew, and I did my best to function with it, and they asked me to help get the thing started, and I'm not all that good at doing all kinds of things in AA. I can sit down with a newcomer and carry the message. I can lead a meeting half-assed, not very well. I can sit on a board and give them what for, but it does expect any results. And then my AA baby in Northern California, this is going on Zoom. He opens the 202 Club on Zoom. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing all my old friends and guys I sponsored, and we're scattered all over the United States now. So that lasted 2 years. It was fun and nuts. And so I started getting bored with in-person meetings. So I went out and I joined some Zoom meetings after I learned how Zoom functions. I'm still not fully aware of it, but I'm trying. And I would do 6 or 7 meetings a week on Zoom. It's nice because I can be lazy. And I've discovered I'm not the only long timer who does Zoom and is lazy. I don't have to drive anywhere. So I go through all that and I've done a couple of years of Zoom now. And I decided my Saturday meeting is starting to bore me. And I really heard all the stories over and over again. So I go and I find another meeting that meets at 1 o'clock, and I find a meeting that meets at noon, and I find a couple people. There's a guy in San Luis Obispo who's on an Arizona meeting on Mondays, and he's a year older than I am, sobriety-wise. I think he might be younger than I am, age-wise. And I meet at the 1 o'clock meeting, there's a woman who's got me by 6 years. And so I like to listen to her occasionally. So I go to the 1 o'clock meeting several times a week. And I decide I'm going to go find some new meetings. I I looked in the list, and there's this meeting on Saturdays, question and answer meeting at noon. I spent 29 years going to a question and answer meeting on Saturdays at noon with a group they call the zoo because it's totally nuts. And it stayed nuts the whole 29 years I was there. So I turn on my computer, I go to the question and answer meeting. There's a bunch of people on the screen who are completely crazy, nuts. And I said to myself, that's my meeting back in 51 years ago. That's the group I got sober in. Only they're not quite as crazy. There's a couple of people back then who were totally wacko. And with this group, this group's got a little bit of sanity. Not much, but I enjoyed it so thoroughly. I bragged to my wife. I just found the 202 Club again. The people are saying the same things. I'm hearing the same nonsense I heard there, and the same recovery. And they're all saying the same things their predecessors said 51 years ago. Only most of them weren't born then. They must have been attending it pre-birth. So, at any rate, then they tell me it's around the clock. The 202 Club never closed. It was open around the clock. Go in anytime. And I will finish with this one thing that happened in my 11th year. I'm sitting there watching a movie on TV. It's the late afternoon, I think. I'm watching a Western I like. This voice comes into my ears. And this was a very important thing in growth, I think. The voice comes into my ear and it said, go to the club. What? Go to the club. I'm watching a movie. Go to the club. I want to finish this movie. Go to the club. I want to finish this movie. Get in your car and go to the club now. Now! So I turn off the TV. I get in the car. The car knows how to get to the club because it's done it countless times without my actually knowing what I'm doing behind the wheel. It gets to the parking lot. It stops. I go up the stairs. There's one guy in the building, a newcomer, looking for someone to talk to. this is the first time it happened. I ended up sponsoring the guy. I ended up having him as a house guest for a while. I had a number of house guests because that's how I got sober. I was other people's house guests. And that kept going. And I've heard that voice many times. And every time I hear that voice, there's a newcomer at the other end. So here I am. And this is the longest speech pitch I've given in sobriety. And it's now 12:01, and I managed to get through an entire hour of speaking without too much ballot. I think that should be it.
That was amazing. I have a couple questions for you though.
Okay.
So how old were you when you did start drinking and started going to the Moose Lodge with your stepfather?
I must have been about 16.
Okay. Um, did you say that you knew Dr. Bob?
No, I did
No,
not
okay.
know.
I misheard that
He
then.
died in 1950. I
Okay.
did know Chuck C.
Oh,
I
that's
did
amazing.
know, I did know Clancy.
That's awesome.
I met them
Okay,
both in my first year.
cool. So how long has your wife been sober now?
38 years going. She's coming up on 39.
Awesome. And what is your website?
FinalCutAZ.com.
Okay, that's awesome. All right, let me get my script back up. Okay, so thank you for sharing your story with us today, Bruce, and I'm sure our members will enjoy listening to it. Have a great day and keep trudging the road of happy destiny. To our subscribers, we hope you enjoyed listening to the story and have subscribed and liked our videos. Please feel free to share our videos along with our website and podcast link.
I'll start sharing in the meetings on this group now. I've stayed away from that because of what I would about sharing when she newly joined the group.
All right,
Uh,
thank you,
having
Bruce.
having been an elder and a bleeding deacon, I had fun as a bleeding deacon. Elders get jealous when other people with longer term sobriety or their length of sobriety come in and start to carry the message a bit too much. So I don't want to disrupt any of the elders in this group with my expertise.
Okay, thank you, Bruce.
Have,
I'm gonna stop
okay.